when the College Football Playoff Committee announced their Final Four. In my head, I'm on NFL Game Day morning. I'm talking about it, and I start thinking to myself, who are some of the people who I respect and appreciate? What are they thinking about it? You were coming to mind, and then I went about my day, for the professional day of football, and then I turned to my phone, and then I see the headline: college football has always had the best regular season in sports. It doesn't anymore. And I'm like, okay, now I know how Bruce feels about it. I'll give you the floor.
I actually didn't think about it that clearly. It didn't resonate until I actually sitting there watching this. And they are 13-0. They were in a Power 5 conference. By the way, the guy who will probably win the Heisman this weekend, Jaden Daniels, who ran through the SEC, they did the best job of slowing him down, and they were leading LSU 45-17 with a minute left in that game. Like, it was not close. They dominated them. Their defense is really good. But their offense, now that Jordan Travis is out for the season, struggled. It has struggled the last 2 games. Now, this past week, they were playing their third-string quarterback because their backup, Tate Rodemaker, who has played, and last year he led them to a comeback win at Louisville where he was impressive. But against Florida in a rivalry game, he was shaky. But he also left the game with a concussion, didn't play this past week against Louisville. The committee took it upon them to say, well, that offense that we just saw on Saturday night, we don't think it's a good matchup. We don't think they have a chance to win that. Well, that guy who is playing, Brock Glenn, wouldn't be the guy to start anyway. But the committee already just wrote them off. And my problem with this is the games need to matter. This is an undefeated team. This is an undefeated team who, by the way, scheduled 2 really good SEC opponents. It's not their fault that Florida stinks this year. But, in the non-conference, they ran through the rest of the league. They have a lot of talented players on both sides of the ball. And here's Alabama, who lost at home by 10 to Texas. It wasn't anything fluky. They did beat Georgia, and that's a legitimate big-time win. 2-time defending champs. They knocked them out. But the week before, if you want to talk about eyeball test, they barely beat Auburn. And Auburn's not good this year. Auburn the week before got smashed by New Mexico State. But the committee could not fathom the idea of not having an SEC champ in there, even with 1 loss. And obviously, the SEC has been the most dominant conference in college football the last 2 decades. This has not been a great year for the SEC, though. There's no way around that. But the committee just couldn't bear the thought of no SEC team, and ultimately they screwed Florida State.
So let's stroll down a little bit of pushback lane here. Certainly, since my colleague across the aisle, Chris Brockman, feels completely differently about this.
Well, he's wrong.
Well, here we go.
Oh,
here we go.
So harsh.
Because your point is that, sure, Jaden Daniels was held down by Florida State. It was week 1, though. What do you say to that?
That's when the game was played.
Okay.
Or the fact that's essentially the preseason, right?
That's what you've been saying to me for days. So, and I'm not just saying it because I agree with him. I'm allowing for the pushback conversation to be had. Because you're not the only one who feels this way.
I get it. This defense, though, is also the only one who's held a Jeff Brom offense under 200 yards in 5 years. Like, they're really good on defense. They have really good receivers. They're a talented team. The trigger man struggled the basically you're going off of 1 game. It was at Florida in a rivalry game. He didn't play great. Okay. But that's basically what people are writing off. I find it hard to believe that if Alabama was beating Georgia, and on like the last series, even though they were winning, if their quarterback got hurt and, was out for the season, that they would have written off Alabama the same way. I just don't buy that.
What about the idea that the College Football Playoff Committee did include in its thinking a result from the season in that they couldn't take Alabama without Texas?
I think that's very true. Like, I think if Georgia won and was undefeated, Georgia's number 1, Michigan's 2, Washington's 3, and then maybe Florida State does go. But I think it was like they were boxed in because they couldn't take Texas without taking Alabama. They just could. I don't think to them, that was this was probably a more palatable solution than that one was.
Would there have been a bigger outcry if they had taken Florida State but taken Alabama and left Texas out?
Yeah, I think head-to-head is hard. Now, it's not Texas's fault, by the way. We were just talking about like, Florida wasn't very good, and that's who Florida State was playing. But the Big 12 was really bad outside of Texas. They played an Oklahoma State team that lost to South Alabama and UCF. Neither team is anywhere near a top 25 team. Lost them like 78-10 by a combined score.
But to be fair, the Big Ten outside of Michigan and Ohio State, with all due respect to Penn State, it was one large wasteland. I mean, Iowa's defense, so I guess half of Iowa, we have to include Iowa's defense, was championship quality. I think you could say that.
But you usually have two very talented teams in there. I don't think, like Penn State's offense this year was really disappointing.
Right.
I get it, but I think they are, I think they're going to get the benefit of the doubt, quite honestly.
So while we're playing what if Oregon had beaten Washington? Do you think with the other results that came down, they would have left the Pac-12 winner out? See you later?
No, I think Oregon would have still gotten that spot.
Okay.
I do, because they would have avenged their one loss. It was a close loss, and I think people looked at Oregon on the eyeball test and were like, all right, they're talented on both sides of the ball. They have a really good quarterback. Ultimately, I just think that the committee, got some feedback here. It's like, all right, well, the matchup, we've had a lot of blowouts in the playoff. And I think if you're ESPN, you didn't want that. You're paying a lot of money for this.
So you think Texas winning was the death knell for Florida State? Because even if Georgia had beaten Alabama, the SEC's getting a team in, right? And then Texas winning gave them the opportunity to put a one-loss Big 12 team in
one loss with one really good
over
win.
Florida State, because Big 10's going, Pac-12's going, SEC's going, and Florida State would have gotten in over Texas, or so Texas gets in because Alabama won, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and so you've always had this really flawed system. There are 5 Power 5 conferences for 4 spots.
Yeah. Right.
This has had the potential for this to happen always. It's just the last year of this before we go to 12 next year.
Yeah.
It's when it really splintered apart on them. And, it was almost bound to happen, and it just hadn't happened like this until now. But like in the past, Cincinnati was undefeated, and they came from a group of 5 conference. And I think people thought it was a pretty good team. But I don't think anybody looked at them and go, oh, yeah, they're one of the I don't think anybody. I don't think a lot of people looked at them and go, oh, they're one of the 4 best teams. And if you're going to go by 4 best, who does Vegas think? Who does, if you ask Daniel Jeremiah and the NFL personnel people, they'd be like, oh, Georgia or whatever is one of the 4 best. That's the get out of jail free card for a lot of this, is like the best is now really Trump's most deserving. And if you asked me, and this is to me the wrong way to approach it, but if it's like, oh, on a neutral field, who would you pick? Well, on a neutral field, me and Vegas and everybody else were picking Washington to lose again to Oregon. That didn't happen. It's still like...
Yeah, so, I mean, the whole business is just like, the results matter. The records matter. Let the chips fall where they may, because that's all that matters. Not like, let's try and figure out best and final, figuring out all that stuff.
How would you feel if you're an Ohio State fan, if you're a Michigan fan.
Yeah.
What did I do? If you're a Michigan fan and late in the game, J.J. McCarthy re-aggravates like a leg, and then he can't play. And all of a sudden it's like is the committee now evaluating Jack Tuttle off whatever?
Let's be honest too. I think Stephen A. Smith nailed it completely when he said if Deion was the coach of Florida State, he'd be in.
Yeah, I think they nailed.
I think he nailed that completely.
Yeah. But Deion also said yesterday that he thought the committee got it right.
But he could say obviously what he feels in terms of what he thinks is right or wrong.
But
the bottom line is the question is what should be done and what happened.
Is the Stephen A. contention that because Deion's a bigger star than Mike Norvell that he would get?
No, because if this is about getting people to turn on their television sets.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. And
he works for ESPN, so he'd probably know more of what their thinking is than
maybe so. And so
also in terms of Vegas too, Bruce, Georgia is a 14-point favorite over Florida State.
Yeah. Well, look, Florida State is probably not going to show up in much of a, like their player. You're going to get a bunch of guys who are going to opt out. I don't think people are going to read into whatever's going to happen in that game. And I'm like, I don't know what Florida State's going to show up. I don't think that's going to be a fair representation if you have some guys going, you know what, I'm just going to go to the Senior Bowl instead.
So do you think Florida State would be able to give Michigan a good game or better game than Alabama? Or hold on a minute. That's the wrong way to phrase it. That had Florida State gone, Michigan wouldn't be peeing down their leg, reacting to Alabama being named. Is that the better way to put it? Because I'm sorry, I don't want to make it seem. I don't want to make it seem like Michigan, that views, like getting a better game from Alabama. That whole nonsense.
It doesn't. But it actually doesn't. It doesn't matter to me who they're more scared of or not. That should not be the criteria.
Well, that's what Boo Corrigan said. They asked the coaches on the committee, who would you want to play and who would you rather not play? And I guess the answer came back, you would rather not play Alabama and Nick Saban than Mike Norvell and his backup quarterback. And they're like, well, that's another metric. Sold.
So who would you rather play, Texas or Georgia? Use that metric.
Exactly. I guess. I don't know, because
you should have put TCU in the playoff last year then.
Toe meets ball, it's all bets are off, man. That's what the beauty of football is. The magic carpet rides. Pumpkins get turned into carriages. That's why we love this sport more than any other. Or college basketball, too. I mean, that's the actual phrase about the Cinderella slipper fits. Like, what are we doing?
I saw something the other night when Trevor Lawrence got hurt in Monday Night Football, and somebody had tweeted, it was like, okay, now are the Jaguars going to be disqualified from the playoffs?
And good thing they weren't there to eliminate Cincinnati with Jake Browning lighting it up. Bruce Feldman here on the Rich Eisen Show.
Yes, but now Jaguars really don't have a chance to win the Super Bowl if Trevor Lawrence is out. Let's be honest.
Okay, let's be honest, because Nick Foles didn't happen. Honestly, Jeff Hostetler never happened. That never happened. Honestly, look at O.J. Anderson's hand. There's a big fat ring on it.
Yeah, but you're doing probability. It's the committee's chance to take that into consideration. It's their duty to do that.
Is it?
You think Florida State's would have beaten Michigan? Come on, be honest.
Let me ask you this question. How does it feel to be on the business end of Bruce Feldman's sort of eyebrow arch questioning your thought process? Because I've been on that for about 10 weeks. How does it feel for you? It's not comfortable, is it?
I think Bruce and I are more on the same team than you think.
Not on this subject matter, I don't think.
I don't know if we're on this subject. You're my guy over there, but this one, the part I don't like is I just feel like you can't be better than 13-0. The object is, to win the games. Do you want to be impressive? Yes. But at some point, we're not judging one-loss teams. The part I really don't like about this is we're now all of a sudden taking to TV executives going, who is the matchup you really want?
But it's a TV show.
But it is a TV show.
But that's the reality, and I think that's where
it's a game show.
That's where your column nails it, and the headline nails it, even though I'm sure you didn't write the headline. Those get written by somebody else. Yeah. Well, whoever did it nailed it, because this is about TV. That's why the Pac-12 no longer exists. That's why this game between Washington and Oregon will be a Big Ten matchup from now on. That's why there's a reason maybe for Mike Norvell and Florida State to look at each other and say, why the hell are we in the ACC if this is the way it's going to come shaken out when we go undefeated? And that's why, ACC folks should push the hell back with every fiber of their being right now, even though maybe it's different with 12 teams next year.
It would be. And also, there's a lot of chatter about how the ACC leadership didn't want to expand. It was like part of the delay of why it didn't happen this year. You can believe whatever you want to believe on that subject, but that would be some irony in there. Again, it's a juicy topic. I think that, if Alabama goes on and beats your alma mater, I think people will go, aha, see, they were deserving. And look, I don't fault Alabama. They had, to me, it's like this is probably the greatest coaching job Nick Saban's done since he's been in Tuscaloosa. That team wasn't very good at the beginning of the year. They got a lot better over the course of the year. They're a really good team. It's just, it's not about Alabama. It's not about the SEC. It's really about Florida State. And the principle of this.
The principle of it. And so what you're saying is if Alabama wins, then those who say that what's wrong with college football has proven out because Florida State didn't make it, right? Then Michigan is fighting for college football, is what you're saying.
Are they America's team again? Is that what you're saying?
That's what you're saying. So if
Alabama
Alabama wins, college football writ large loses. That's what I just heard. Am I wrong? That's what I heard from Bruce Feldman of Fox Sports and The Athletic, which is really weird because that's not normally the stance he would take. Please tell me if I've heard that wrong. Did I hear that wrong?
I think
you're like, if Alabama wins, everybody who says Florida State should have gotten in because that's what's right for college football, and that's what college football is all about, that if Alabama wins, those people lose. So Michigan's fighting on their behalf in the Rose Bowl. Am I wrong?
I think it's hilarious. We're talking about college football and principles and expecting them to do the right thing.
There you go. Now we're on the same team.
You know what I mean?
That's what I heard.
I got you back.
I'm telling you, I don't know if my ears are working. That's what I heard. The everybody is those who don't like college football and what it used to be. Michigan versus them too now.
Those plucky Alabama underdogs.
Are they underdogs?
Yeah, 1.5.
Okay.
It is a little interesting, though.
Oh, it sure is. This whole thing is fascinating. It is fascinating. You know, and next week when you come back here, we're going to be talking essentially deeper about college football free agency.
Oh, it's
there.
Way on right now.
We're in. I mean, the transfer portal's open. Kids are entering it right now. I'm sure there are multi-million-dollar deals on the table. You know, signing period that's nothing. We're in free agency. And I'm sure next week it'll be talking about who's losing, who's winning, who's left.
We're talking about Arch Manning, Bruce. Where's he going?
Well, this whole thing fits into two buckets for the portal at least with quarterbacks. It's the guys who are proven, and there's the Cam Wards, Dylan Gabriels, guys who put up numbers, and then there's this other batch who are like big recruits who haven't really done anything. Whether it's Dante Moore, Aiden Childs, Arch Manning, if he ends up in there, like there's a bunch of guys who would fit in that category. It's like, okay, do you bet on those guys or do you bet on the guys? Because it's literally a bet now because you're going to have to spend a lot of money for some of them. You're probably going to have to spend in the low seven figures.
Wow. That will be next week. I greatly appreciate. So you are going to Vegas for the awards?
No, the thing happened. Reggie's deal and the other guys who went in last night.
So you're home. You're home this weekend. You watch Army Navy just like the rest of all of us?
I'm hoping for snow like we
That's
sometimes
always
get.
great. Oh, my gosh. New York state of mind, man.
Best rivalry in sports.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can't wait to see which coach is more likely, Army and Navy's coach, to blow a whistle and hop up and down amongst all of his players and let them dance on the field.
Go?
No, I won't ever. I won't ever.
I think your coach might be the one who's the blow whistle guy.
So what is my guy wears cleats during games because he's got more career NFL rushing yards than Bo Jackson. All right? Facts. I only spit them here, including
I can't wait to go to the Rose Bowl.
Bruce Feldman here on The Rich Eisen Show. Thanks for coming in, sir.
Thank you.
Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.